Okay. We'll get started here. Ezrat Hashem. We have a lot of material to cover, especially with the 9th of Av coming up. It's also the Yortzeit. It was the day that this evening is going to be the day that the Arizal passed away. The 5th of Av is the commemoration, the day that the Arizal passed away, and so we have a custom to light a candle in his honor and pray that he can bring our prayers to Hashem. It's good to remember something from his works. Try to study something from his works this evening and maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about that later on in the shir. Okay. So we left off on when the fast begins, and so in a normal year we say that the fast will begin. Also this year the fast will begin at sunset, at Shkia. So here in Texas it's going to be 8:24 for the Ashkenaz. We say that to the Sfardis, they'll have a custom to take an extra minute or two beforehand, and so therefore 8:21, 8:22, that should be the last time you can eat or drink. Someone who, let's say, ate a little bit earlier in the day, he ate a little bit, let's say at 7:30 he finished his meal, but then afterwards he felt hungry or he felt thirsty, then you can go back and eat. There's no problem with that.
Just to be clear, Seta Kochavim, that's
No.
fast, right?
Sunset, not Seta Kochavim.
Sunset, okay.
So sunset, we said it's going to be around 8:24. I think sunset is later. It's like closer to 9. Sorry, Seta Kochavim is closer to 9. Yeah. And so just be cognizant of that, because especially since it's Shabbat, you don't get an alert. You don't have people texting you that the fast is starting. So we'll have to remind ourselves. So 8:24, we said the fast starts. We should have all food and drinks consumed, and if anyone takes any pills or anything, make sure that's all done before 8:24. At that point, no more food or drinks can be taken, can be eaten. And then at that point, though, you're still allowed to be able to say Birkat HaMazon. So let's say you still want to sit and talk a little bit before doing Birkat HaMazon. The Birkat HaMazon does not have to be before 8:24, before sunset, but the finishing of the food and the drinks on Shabbos, yeah, should be before 8:24. Okay, so now going into some of the activities that are forbidden on Tisha B'Av. As we know that Tisha B'Av is a day of mourning, and so therefore we mourn over the Beit HaMikdash, over the fallen, over all the Jews that were killed also. This is a national day of mourning. We use this day also to commemorate all of the tragedies that happened throughout Jewish history, since there's no formal, in Judaism, right? There's no formal Holocaust day. There's no formal day that we remember the pogroms. There's no formal day that we remember Tach V'Tat. So how do we kind of combine everything to this one day, and we go on this one day and we commemorate and go over all of the history, all of the Jewish history, how we've been persecuted, and it adds to the somberness of the day. With that being said, so as we know, some of the activities that are forbidden on Tisha B'Av are eating and drinking, or fasting, so no eating and drinking. And so with that, just some of the, I guess, extraneous cases with that, right? Or some of the outlier cases with that is if someone made a blessing on a food accidentally, I don't know, he forgot it was Shabbat, or he forgot it was the fast day, maybe it was still on Shabbat, he wanted to bless, don't know, then he should go ahead and taste a little bit of the food and put it down. We said because Tisha B'Av is a biblical fast at the end of the day, and saying a blessing in vain would be the Tisha B'Av is rabbinical, and saying a blessing in vain would be biblical, and so we would rather you forfeit the rabbinic prohibition instead of doing the biblical. Yes.
besides Yom Kippur, we have other fast days. You said that this day coming up is, for lack of a better term, our day of memorializing the tragedy.
Yeah.
What about the other fast days, like the fast of Vesper?
So all of those,
How do we categorize those?
all of those are basically precursors to this one. Because if you think about it, what are all of the other ones? Som Gedalia.
They're sun up to sundown. The other Tisha B'Av is all
Also, if you look at what they were fasting about, Som Gedalia was when Gedalia was killed, and then that was the beginning of the exile, right? When Nebuchadnezzar and all them exiled us, and then the 10th of Tevet is when they breached the walls of Jerusalem, and then the 17th of Av is when we broke the halakhot and they breached the walls, right? And so all of these days are basically coming up to, they're precursors to what was the main event. The main event was the destruction of the temple, was the first and the second. And so even though the other ones, like you said, also there are some sundown to sunset, we also don't find there's any prohibitions with mourning. There's no customs to act like mourners on those days. This day is a day of we act like mourners, and we'll get more into that soon. And so, so with regards to someone who needs to rinse his mouth or brush his teeth, we said that's not allowed unless he has extreme discomfort. I guess each person needs to figure out what that is for themselves, and in that case, there is a side to be lenient. But if a person isn't extremely discomforted, you shouldn't do it. And then even when you're extremely discomforted and you go ahead and you rinse your mouth or you brush your teeth, you should make sure that your head is down so nothing gets swallowed accidentally. Smoking cigarettes, I think we talked about that. It's technically permitted, but it shouldn't be done in the synagogue. It shouldn't be done kind of if you're learning or doing anything, and we'll get into what we can learn later on. Okay, so people who are exempt from the fast, really technically, if anyone is healthy, they're not exempt from the fast. The only cases that are going to be is if a doctor would tell you that it's dangerous if you were to fast. So if a doctor tells you don't fast or it can be detrimental to your health, detrimental to your life, then for sure you should go ahead and not fast. Generally, we say pregnant women and nursing women are exempt from the fasts, but in this one they are not. But if a pregnant or nursing woman is slightly ill, then she is exempt from fasting. If there's a concern that a pregnant woman will miscarry, then the doctor, even if she doesn't have any history of miscarrying, but the doctor tells her don't fast, then even in this case we are lenient and we say that she does not have to fast. So if a nursing mother is feeling ill, and again if the doctor tells her not to fast, again she shouldn't fast. It's forbidden for a woman to fast after giving birth the first 7 days. And then after the first 7 days for the first month, she's exempt, meaning if she wants to, she can, but she has no technically obligation until the first 30 days. After 30 days, after giving birth, then she is just like every other person. Again, if someone's ill, and they need to have like a doctor tell them, if someone has like a headache or a pain in their side, something like that, then that doesn't as long as it poses no mortal danger to the person, we don't really say that he's exempt from the fast. But anyone who is moderately ill is exempt from the fast. And so if someone is suffering, let's say from like a fever, or a cold, then we would say that if he's moderately ill like that, he is exempt from the fast, especially if it can exacerbate if he can exacerbate the situation. That's should be you should again consult with the doctor. If the doctor says that you shouldn't fast, and don't put yourself in danger, basically. So anyone of these people that we said that are exempt from the fast, they can eat in a normal way. They don't have to kind of eat in bits by bits like on Yom Kippur. But again, you don't want to make sure you don't want to eat anything too fancy, not candies like pizza. No, those things shouldn't be eaten. It should be something more plain, simple. Because again, it's a day of mourning. If someone decides that they want to eat bread, we'll see in a second that washing of the hands is usually limited to the fingers, not the whole hand. But if someone is going to plan to eat, they should wash normally up till the wrist, because this is not a washing for pleasure, it's a washing for a mitzvah. And we said because of that, you're allowed to wash until the wrist, like you usually do for washing the bread. And then there's no additions to the Birkat HaMazon. Again, all of this is if someone is ill. Someone who's elderly, again, as long as the doctor deems them fine to fast, they're fine to fast. If the doctor says no, then it might endanger their life. Then we don't force the guy to fast. If someone has pills and they need to take the pills, let's say someone's on antibiotics and he needs to do it that day, then you're able to take the medicine. As long as you don't do it with water. If you
don't do it with water.
Water,
How are you gonna swallow the pill?
So if he needs it, so Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky ruled that if someone is ill and he needs to take the medicine, but cannot swallow the pills without water, he must make sure to drink less than a melol ugumav, a cheekful of water. So he permits that someone who needs it can take like a little bit of a water, like a little sip of water, maybe like a cap full of water, and use that to take the pill. So ideally, if someone can do it without water, ideally without the water, but if he needs water, it's impossible for him to swallow the pill without water, of course, he can go ahead and do it with a little bit of water. Similarly, if someone just needs a pain reliever, if someone's suffering from a headache, he's technically permitted to swallow a pain reliever, but without water, and he needs to make sure it's tasteless. I know sometimes like Advil, there's like a sweet taste a little bit, so that wouldn't be allowed. Children under the age of bar or bat mitzvah are exempt from fasting. There's no, if they want to, they can, but there's no obligation until they get to 13 for boys, 12 for girls. And so feeding the children is permitted. There's no prohibition for you to feed your own children. But again, you should make sure that you're not feeding them candies, pizza. Try to keep it plain, simple. That way they're not partying on the day of sadness. So on Tisha B'Av, we're not allowed to bathe. So no bathing on Tisha B'Av. It's kind of hard for this year. This is probably one of the only downsides to Tisha B'Av being on Motzei Shabbat, is that we can't shower. You can't shower like really before Tisha B'Av, and you can't shower on Tisha B'Av. So you're just gonna have to make do with that, especially in this heat. But if someone's hands become soiled with whatever it may be, dirt or whatever, you can wash it off. Also, we'll see in a second, soap. You can wash it off a little bit if you go to like the bathroom or something. With regards to as far as using like towelettes or wet wipes, that would be forbidden on this day. Again, unless you needed to wash off any dirt or to clean off the hands from any gunk or whatever. Similarly, you can use these towelettes to kind of clean the eyes in the morning from any gunk. In the morning, when we're doing the washing of the hands, after you wake up, you want to do it the regular way, but you want to do it up till the knuckles. You don't want to do the whole hand. So only until the knuckles. That's the general rule when we say to get rid of the evil spirits on the hands after in the morning. So we're saying only until the knuckles. You can so also after going to the bathroom, right after relieving yourselves, you can pour your water on the hands up to the knuckles, and again 3 times like we usually do. And also, if you need, you can wash it with soap, because it might be dirty. Someone who's is extremely sensitive, and he won't be able to function without washing his face on. He may do so on Tisha B'Av. So someone, again, if someone is just, he's not able to function if he doesn't wash his face or something in the morning, he would have to. He's allowed to. We'll see that women are allowed to cook from midday to get the food ready after the fast, so she can rinse off all the vegetables, all the meat that she needs to do, and if she needs again to wash her hands with soap in order to prepare the things, again that's permitted, as long as
For after the fast?
for after
Midday leading up to the time that the fast will be over?
after midday you can prepare food for the ending of the breaking of the fast. Correct. But you shouldn't do so beforehand. So at like 10 a.m., don't start making food for the night. Similarly, rubbing creams on one's skin and hands is forbidden. If someone has like extremely chapped lips or scraped dry skin, and they need it more so not so for relief, but more so for therapeutic reasons, that's allowed. As long as you just put it on the affected area, that's allowed. But otherwise, if it's for pleasure, or even for the scent, so some certain, certain scented hand sanitizers would be forbidden as well on this day. If you needed to, though, to get off, if you didn't have any water, you only had like oil, and you needed to get it off gunk on your hand, then that's allowed. And even though we said that scented creams are forbidden, nonetheless you're allowed to put on deodorant, and in fact you probably should put on deodorant, especially after Shabbat. So you can put deodorant, whether it's spray or stick, that's allowed on Tisha B'Av. Yes.
Read that again. You're saying that you can use deodorant?
Yes. According to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he said that deodorant is no worse than using oil to rub filth from one's skin. And they say, it's also very important, since it's basic human decency, especially if you've went through all Shabbat walking in the heat. When you come into shul, you don't want the shul to smell like a bathroom stall. So it's important, especially some people. I was one time in Israel, and in Israel, especially in the summer, people tend to forget to put on deodorant, and so the halakhot is if there's a bad smell, you can't pray there. So I was in a synagogue. I got a good place. I didn't smell anything. Suddenly, right before we started praying, someone comes, sits right in front of me. And I guess he didn't shower that day or that week, and he forgot to put on deodorant. So I had to move to a different spot in the synagogue. So don't be that guy. You can wear deodorant. So in fact, you probably should wear deodorant. That way, it won't affect the congregants. It won't affect the people around you. In addition to not showering, we said there's also a prohibition. Again, these are halakhot that are similar to Yom Kippur. So one of the prohibitions on Yom Kippur and also on Tisha B'Av is wearing leather shoes. So wearing leather shoes is forbidden. Nowadays it's a little different. We have synthetic materials. So if it's like a running shoe, those are usually permitted. But something more leather, I think your shoes look like they're leather. So that would be forbidden on Tisha B'Av. I think the minhag of America, maybe Israel, is to wear Crocs On this is the one day a year that it's, or this day in Yom Kippur, the days that it's fashionable to wear Crocs to shul. So we're saying that if it's made out of rubber or it's synthetic material that makes it look like leather, that's still permissible, even though you might think that someone might get mistaken and think it's leather. And at the end of the day, since kind of like how we said with meats, people have soy meats, and so everything's just so nothing's real anymore. so no one's gonna be concerned that you're wearing leather shoes on Yom Kippur, even though it might look leather. As long as you know that it's rubber or any of these synthetic materials, that's allowed. When this year being it Motzei Shabbat, so we have to take our shoes off, our leather shoes, because usually, and I know my shoes for Shabbat are leather. You want to take those off in the middle of Shabbat, really. Not in the middle of Shabbat, but before starting the fast. So, according to Ashkenaz, right? According to Ashkenaz, you would remove the shoes at the same time you start the fast. So, fast starts at 8:24. You remove your leather shoes before 8:24. Sfardis are a little bit more. Not lenient, but we push it off. We don't bring it so much into the Shabbat itself. So we say 20 minutes after that, so 8:44. And if someone's, let's say, at synagogue, and he has his change of shoes there, he can really wait until the Arvit. And so just before Arvit, he can go ahead, switch his shoes, and begin the Tisha B'Av prayers. But again, Ashkenazim say 8:24. I'm saying sunset, right? 8:24 here in Dallas. According to Sfardis, if you wanted to change it at home, you do 20 minutes after that. So over here, 8:44. And let's say you're at shul and you brought the change of. So that's another thing. If you're staying at shul, right, then you want to make sure you have a change of shoes. If you have your leather shoes on. So don't forget before Shabbat to bring your non-leather shoes to the synagogue, put them in a locker or something so you don't forget. And then you can put it on. So with regards to the blessing in the morning, one of the blessings is She'asali kol tzorki, which refers to the putting on the shoes, that Hashem gave us shoes to protect our feet, to protect ourselves from walking on the ground, on the dirt. So that's one of the prayers. The minhag, or the halacha with regards to Sfardis, is that we do bless this on Tisha B'Av. Even though we don't wear leather shoes, nonetheless, we do say this blessing, Sfardis. I think Ashkenazim, there's a machloket also. So I would say check your local Orthodox Ashkenazi rabbi and see what he says. I don't know if they have it here. Let's see. I don't see anything here. Okay. So children should also primarily not wear leather shoes, unless that's their only pair of shoes. Then I guess they would have to. But again, it's proper to train them not to wear these shoes. Again, nowadays it's less common. People are wearing non-leather shoes on the regular. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. So, although we're going to see later on that the restrictions for Tisha B'Av are until midday, but all of these that we just said are still restricted throughout the day. So, no eating and drinking, no showering, no bathing, no washing, no applying creams, no wearing leather shoes. All of these are forbidden throughout the day until the fast is over. Marital relations, so it's forbidden to have marital relations on Tisha B'Av. It's like Yom Kippur. And so the practice is even to not sleep in the same bed as your spouse, even if you're fully clothed. So kind of like pretend that she's like nida, that she's impure. Nonetheless,
is that something on every fast day? On every fast day?
On every fast, usually the fast only starts during the day.
So again, on every fast day, including those that are just during the day, are such things like that prohibited?
During the day, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not a day, during the day it wouldn't be. During the night before, I think there's a machloket Ashkenaz and Sephardi, I think. But we, over here, for example, let's say Tisha B'Av fell on Shabbat, okay, and then it was pushed off to Sunday. Sephardi say that it's allowed on Shabbat, whereas Ashkenazim say it's not allowed on Shabbat, even though it's pushed off. And more so is that that even though we said pretend like she is nida, that the wife is nida, nonetheless you're allowed to hand her stuff. You don't have to follow all the halakhot, but one should not, hug or kiss his wife. It's not a day of levity. It's not a day of showing, expressing affection. It's something that you should that shouldn't be done on this day. But nonetheless, it's permitted to touch each other, give it each other. So technically, that's permitted. If you need to hand a child over to your wife, that's permitted. All of these things usually aren't permitted because of the nidah restrictions. If she was an actual nidah, but if she's not a nidah, then as far as that goes, then you're allowed to touch her, bring her, give her things, hand her things. That's not prohibited. Again, we wanted to say that sleep in separate beds, and that that in regards to marital relations, that's forbidden. As far as Torah study on Tisha B'Av, which is probably one of the hardest things, is that technically we're like mourners, and so mourners are exempt from Torah study. And so we say on this day we're so-called mourners, and so there's actually a machloket if we're considered exempt from Torah study. Nonetheless, even though there's sides to say on each side, there's grounds on each side. There's no kind of bottom line, but the idea is not to waste your time just doing nothing. Whether it's learning about, because I know they have a bunch of Holocaust classes, and we'll see now that there's certain things you can study about, and maybe if we'll see if there's a request. I was talking to the rabbi, Rav Shimon, to see if maybe I'll do we talked about this on Sunday, a class on Bar Kamsa and Bar Kamsa and the destruction of the temple. So maybe we'll talk about that. We'll see if people would be interested in that. I know it's a long day, it's a fast day, so I know people, especially when having eaten for 24 hours, people can get hangry. So we said that though, nonetheless, it's forbidden to study, let's say 99% of Torah subjects. So Talmud, Gemara, Mishnah, Midrash, Tanakh, all of that is going to be forbidden. Why? Because there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, "Pikudei Hashem yisharim mesamchei lev," that the statutes of God they gladden the heart. And we say because Torah gladdens the heart, well, you can't do that on a day of sadness. Nonetheless, there are books, there are things that are permitted to learn about, specifically talking about things of destruction, talking about things of avelut, of mourning, and so they give a little list here. So, for example, the book of Iyov, Job, that would be permitted to learn. You can learn the whole book. The book of Yirmiyahu, specifically the ones, the sections that are talking about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and Israel and the exile. But you shouldn't read any of the verses that are talking about comfort or consolation. Those shouldn't be learned. Similarly, the Midrash of Eicha. I know they have a Midrash upstairs of Eicha. I think there's a Mamloez of Eicha. There's a Midrash Rabbah Eicha. I know that for sure. You're allowed to read that, but you should omit the sections that don't talk about the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Yerushalayim. Because of course the Midrash always kind of goes into different aspects, different agadatot, so try to skip that. One may similarly learn agadic passages that talk about the destruction of the temple. That's what I want to maybe talk about on Sunday, on the fast day, the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, and all of those Gemara over there in Gittin, that go into the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, Beitar, all of these tragic events that happened in Israel, what led up to them. We can learn that. You can also learn the perek, the chapter of Elu Megalchin in Moed Katan. Over there in Moed Katan, in the Gemara over there in Moed Katan, it talks about all of the halakhot, all of the laws with regards to mourning. And so if you want to learn that Gemara, you can learn about it. It's going to basically teach you everything that there is to know about mourning. Similarly, and since we already mentioned it, you can also learn halakhot from the Shulchan Aruch or from the Torah of the halakhot of mourning, of the halakhot of destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, all of the halakhot Tisha B'Av. If you didn't learn it enough from me, you can always go back and learn it more. All of these are allowed, but it should all be done at a relatively superficial level. It should not be done in depth, because once you get in depth into anything, you get more happiness, more excitement, even if it's a subject that is nonetheless sad. So as long as you're reading about something sad, I guess that's the main point. Whether it's talking about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, Yerushalayim, all of these would be permitted. I know nowadays they have many books, English, Hebrew, Spanish, talking about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, talking about the Holocaust, talking about all of these unfortunate calamities that happened throughout Jewish history. All of these would be permitted, as long as, again, it's focusing on the day, focusing on the idea of mourning. There's a certain kinot, like a book of dirges that talk about all of these songs of mourning. So those are allowed to be chanted on Tisha B'Av. You can learn them, you can look into them. That's allowed. It says school children, today, this year, it's not so much, it's not relevant, and usually Tisha B'Av falls in the summer, but if there's school, let's say in, even in Israel, it's Ben Metzari, it's Ben Azmanim, but school children don't attend Torah classes on Tisha B'Av. And this is specifically, though, for little children who don't understand what they read, but it's permissible to hold classes for older children. We say that little children, they don't really have a say whether they go to class, not go to class. The older children, when they hear class, they go into mourning. So for them, it's allowed. So over there, we say that you're allowed to hold classes for the older children. But again, you shouldn't be studying anything too in depth. Again, it should be something on a superficial level. It should be something that is talked about the destruction of the Yerushalayim. Maybe those Gemaras, again, that talk about some of the Gadatot, some of the stories of what happened during the Beit HaMikdash, the destruction. This applies both to men and women. So women also can't go and study the Parsha, can't do anything like that. Also, if anyone has a daily study that they study every day, like the daily Mishnayot, the Chok Israel, the daily Daf of the Gemara, all of these are not allowed to be learned on Tisha B'Av. You would have to wait until after Tisha B'Av to do that, or do double on Shabbat in order to catch up. Nonetheless, though, in the daily prayers, when we do mention passages of Torah, or we mention Mishnayot, or we mention Braitas, all of these are permitted because they're in the course of prayer, and it's not necessarily you don't do it in the sense of studying it, so that's allowed. So for Shirat Hayam, for example, when we say that's a Song of the Seas in Shacharit, it's allowed. Similarly, when you put on tefillin, right, and then we'll see some people don't have the custom to put on tefillin in the morning, but when you do put on tefillin, you should still say the Shema. Nonetheless, it's not an issue to say the Shema. Another set of books that are allowed are Musar books that bring ethical teachings to the person to inspire him to return and to repent. These books tend to inspire and instill fear and awe into a person. And so those books are allowed. Again, for example, the Pele Yoetz, some of these books are allowed as long as you don't study again on a deep level, and as long as the Musar doesn't start explaining verses on a deep level. And also, if there are any parts of the book that don't talk about mourning, probably should skip over those. Like, for example, the Pele Yoetz, there's some sections over there that talk about happiness and love. Probably skip over those sections. Similarly, on this day, it's forbidden to recite the book of Tehillim. So a lot of people like to, that's the thing that everyone turns to, right, is Tehillim, Psalms, that people could turn to. Unfortunately, on Tisha B'Av, even that you're not allowed to do. So if someone is really stuck, he can't read anything, and it's either reading Tehillim and wasting time, he should probably find something else to learn and not read Tehillim, not read Psalms. Nonetheless, even though we said that you're kind of exempt from Torah study in a sense, you shouldn't again turn to other things. Don't go to like reading a newspaper or a magazine or something. They do have good things on YouTube nowadays. There's a lot of good videos displaying. They have good, I think, graphics on the movies on the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, on different of these Holocaust movies. That would be that would be permitted, right? Because again, it's bringing the atmosphere of the day into a picture. But if it's something not you want to see the highlights of the game over Shabbat, probably don't watch that.
What about watching a movie like Schindler's List or something?
So that would be because that's talking about the Holocaust, right? So as long as, again, if it's instilling somberness, if it's something that's sad, as long as, I don't know, these movies usually don't have a happy ending, right?
I don't think so.
Not only don't have a happy ending, they don't have a happy middle or beginning.
Okay. So a movie like that, I know they have. I think they usually have here in our Torah.
They do.
They have presentations, movies throughout the day, and so again, something that it shouldn't instill any happiness, any consolation. The day is very somber, very sad. Even if someone, let's say, doesn't understand Hebrew and they just want to read Tehillim, read Psalms, that would also, or read the Zohar, right? They don't understand it, they just want to read it, that's also forbidden. So we have the custom, I think here, again, this is not going to be too applicable this year, but we try not to work on Tisha B'Av. If someone has a business and it would completely, be thrown off and go bankrupt from one day of not working, then there's a side to say that's permissible. Nonetheless, the sages warned that anyone who does perform labor on Tisha B'Av will not see any blessing or profit from that labor. So take that into consideration. Again, this year it's on Sunday, so no one's working really. Like what we said, preparing the meals, it's allowed from after midday. So after, I think it's like 1:33, you can start preparing the meals. If someone has like a home construction, he has his home being under construction, and he hired non-Jewish contractors. They happen to show up on Tisha B'Av. You don't have to kick them off the premises. They can continue their work. On Tisha B'Av, we don't say Shalom Aleichem. We try to lean away from saying good morning, good evening, good night, because it's not a good night. It's not a good morning, right? It's a sad morning, but I don't think you're going to go so sad morning. So we don't say Shalom Aleichem. Don't say good Shabbos. I guess once you get into that night period, don't say good Shabbos. Don't say Shabbat Shalom. Don't say Shavua Tov. Have a good week or whatever. All of these should stray away from. If someone does say Shalom Aleichem, they didn't know the halakhot or they forgot, then you can respond. Say how are you or something like that in a low voice. It's permissible though to say come to someone and say how are you feeling? How's the fast going for you? That is permitted. If you haven't seen someone and they had a baby or they got married, you're allowed to go and wish them Mazal Tov. That's allowed. You should avoid strolling, taking like walks. If you're by yourself, and you're like meditating, that's more allowed. But if you're like with a spouse or with a friend, try not to go for a stroll, because once you go strolling, it leads to frivolity and levity and laughter. We also have the custom to sit on the floor during at least the first half of the day, and the night in the first half of the day, so we don't sit in chairs. And so, nonetheless, if there's like a Torah scholar that comes in, you still have to stand up for him. The Shulchan Aruch says that you should stray away from doing anything that makes a person happy. And so, for an example for this is don't play with children, like babies, especially since everyone who has a baby and the baby laughs, it makes everyone happy. So you should stray away from that. Of course, if the baby needs to be lifted, it needs to be burped, or it needs to starts crying, you're allowed to pick it up. Just again, try straying away from doing that, because generally, someone who picks up a baby, it makes them feel good inside, it makes them happy, and so we want to stray away from that. Just important halakhot now. Not that all of this wasn't important, but more pertinent, I guess, this year than other years is the procedure of what happens when Tisha B'Av is on Motzei Shabbat. So we said that with regards to the meal, the last meal, Suda Shlishit, you can eat whatever you want, no restrictions, just what? Need to be finished by 8:24. 8:24 is the last minute you can eat, the last time you can eat. Make sure you finish it before then. Any preparations are not allowed to be done in the synagogue on Shabbat for Tisha B'Av. So we'll see there's a custom to like flip the parochet, the covering of the ark, and so that's not allowed to be done on Shabbat itself, because that would be preparing for after Shabbat. Similarly, we said with the taking off the shoes, that's not necessarily preparing, because you're going to be wearing another pair of shoes. You're just showing that you're wearing something else, so that's allowed to be done on Shabbat. With regards to havdalah, so the custom is not to do havdalah Saturday night. We'll add the extra passages in the Amidah, in the Shemona Esrei, in Atachon Antanu. We'll add that in the Shemona Esrei. After the Shemona Esrei, you'll say Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol. All right, and then you can. Then you would also, depending on whether you're at home or whether you're at synagogue, you should do the blessing on the ner, Borei Morei Ha'esh, on the flame, because then you can't enjoy from the light if you've not blessed that blessing. So usually the leader of the congregation, someone in synagogue, will do that. He'll take the torch and bless it on the torch. That everyone is patur, everyone is they're yotzeh, they fulfill their obligation. But if a woman is not at shul, she's not at synagogue, or a man is not at synagogue, he should nonetheless do that at home, bless the blessing of Borei Morei Ha'esh on a flame, on a torch, like you would normally do on. But other than that, no havdalah. So no wine, no fragrances. In fact, it's forbidden to smell fragrances on Tisha B'Av. So you know how they sometimes have those containers with the blessings that you can make blessings on different good smelling things. So that wouldn't be allowed on Tisha B'Av. So if someone is someone who's not fasting, he's exempt from the fast, or he's a little kid. So at that point, you would need to do havdalah in order to eat. You can't eat until you do havdalah. So if it's a woman, then or an elderly or sick person, they should go ahead and do havdalah for themselves. If it's a child, as long as it's above like 6 or 7 and he can do it, he has to do it himself. So he would have to do it himself, do the havdalah himself. Otherwise, if no one in the family has done havdalah and you're not supposed to do havdalah, so then the havdalah is pushed off until Sunday night, until after the fast. And at that point, you'd only do the blessing on the wine and the finishing of the havdalah, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Otherwise, there would be no other blessings. So even the extra, sometimes the havdalah is preceded by some verses. Even those we don't say. We don't say the blessing over the flame because we said it the night before, and we don't bless it over any fragrances, since that's usually only for the Saturday evening, when the extra soul leaves our body. And since it already left our body, there's no need for the fragrances on Sunday night.
But you do the
just grape juice.
Flame on Motzei Shabbat.
Motzei Shabbat, yeah. So I think they would do it here, right? So they would probably do it here before reading the Megillat Eicha. And so we since this being the Motzei Shabbat, we don't say V'noam after the Arvit, after the Amidah. We go into I think the Ashkenazis also, they read the book of Eicha, the Megillat Eicha, and they do some of the kinot, some of the dirges, and then afterwards Ve'ata Kadosh, and they'll finish the blessing, the Arvit, the Mariv service that way.
What do they do in the party?
Similarly, we do the Eicha and the kinot, and then we do Ve'ata Kadosh, and then we go from there. And I know also here they have the custom to do like kumzitz, like a sad, somber kumzitz afterwards. Again, like we said, there's no sitting on chairs until midday. Everything you should be sitting on the floor. We add in the Amidah, we add the section of Nachem, so it needs to be added. Just pay attention that during Arvit, Shachrit, and Mincha, we add an extra portion to the Amidah. It's called Nachem. It's a blessing of Tishkon Betoch Yerushalayim. Everyone should just pay attention to that. Find it in your sitters. Also, we add the passage of Anenu in the Shomea Tefillah. We add Anenu, so that should also be added during the Amidah. The custom is to kind of dim the lights in the synagogue, again to instill the somber feeling. And so we read the book of Eicha. The Eicha is the book of Lamentations, right? That's how they translate it, Lamentations. And so that talks about a lot of the destruction. It says that there's one dirge that talks about that's eulogizing, I guess, King Yoshiyahu, who was killed in battle against the Egyptian army, and so that's allowed. That's a custom, and then there's also a custom to announce how many years since the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. This night on the Tisha B'Av, people should take go ahead and try to make their sleeping situation less comfortable. So the Gemara says that if someone usually sleeps with 2 pillows, sleep with 1 pillow. Some people take it to the extreme and they like to sleep on the floor or sleep with no pillows or put a rock under the pillow. All of these, as long as it doesn't take away from their sleep to the point where the next morning they're going to be groggy, they're not going to be able to concentrate in tefillah. They're praiseworthy activities, but again, you should weigh the pros with the cons, and if you believe that that's going to affect you throughout the day, then you should weigh that out. Again, if someone's sick or ill or pregnant, and they need it, then they shouldn't afflict themselves more so. And so they're allowed to sleep with the extra pillows or whatever they need. And so just weigh that in mind. If usually the easiest thing to do is if you sleep with 2 pillows, sleep with 1 pillow. And then you've done what the sages have said. and you can still get a good night's sleep. So, we talked about that. Talit and tefillin. So there's a huge machloket on this, and it really comes down to what's your minhag. So I don't your custom. So it sounds like over here there's going to be a minhag that you don't wear talit and tefillin during shacharit. It looks like mincha will be the time that you put on talit and tefillin. It says nowadays really in Sephardi synagogues in Yerushalayim in Israel, and it's getting more prevalent in America, that one technically you should put on tefillin in shachrit, but if in the synagogue is not doing it, don't stand out. Don't be the one guy who's putting on tefillin. You should always conform with what the custom is in the location. Nonetheless, at least for Sfardis, you should wear your tefillin before you come to synagogue, say the Shema, and then take them off, and then come to synagogue and pray with the rest of the congregation. That's if they don't wear tefillin in the synagogue. If they wear tefillin in the synagogue, then go ahead and wear it there.
Question for you.
Yes.
So I've heard, I don't know I don't know how legit this is or not, but I've heard that some customs for mourning are like extended to the 10th day.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Correct.
Burning and things like that.
Correct. I'm gonna say that the majority of the fire was burning really throughout the 10th, and so we're gonna talk about that also in a couple of minutes.
Well, then we're just kind of doing it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like,
Okay. So yeah, we said sitting on the floor. Don't forget adding the additions to the Amidah. Even though it's an interesting day, because even though it's a day of sadness, a day of mourning, we don't do tachanun on this day. So we even though it's we add all these kinot, there's no tachanun on this day, because we do say that it's going to be a day. It's actually considered a moed. It's considered almost like a holiday, and so because of that, it's giving us a hint to the future when this day is going to be a holiday. We say that there's no tachanun, no vidui on this day. Just a reminder that when you're putting on tefillin in the afternoon, you have to still do it with a bracha. Don't think that you don't have to do it with a bracha because it's in the afternoon. So just keeping that in mind. A lot of people have the custom to just do a lot of kinot, a lot of dirges after the shachrit prayer that goes on into the rest of the day, because anyway you can't study Torah, so what else are you going to do? And so unfortunately here we don't have any cemeteries of famous of any big rabbis, but some people had the custom to visit cemeteries after completing the shacharit of the book of Eicha and kinot. The Magen Avraham wrote in the name of the Arizal. We said the Arizal, his yortzeit is tomorrow. That one should not visit a cemetery unless he's attending a funeral. He says it's especially important for someone who has not repented fully for his sins of his youth. I think Rabbi Shimon has talked about this with regards to women going to a cemetery. And also, just in general, if it's not a kever, it's not a place of a tzaddik, right? Then you should. He said that the Arizal said it's better not to go to these cemeteries unless you're going for a funeral. Okay, going into just a little fast mincha. Once mincha comes around, once half day, you're allowed to sit in chairs. There's what was that? Mincha, we read from the Torah also. Again, there is a big custom, a big idea to give charity on every fast day. So even though we say generally on this day you don't want to make someone happy, you can still go ahead and give them charity. That's allowed. The Chidah says that there is a woman have the custom of cleaning their homes on the afternoon of Tisha B'Av. And so if a woman feels that she needs to clean her house, then she can go ahead and do it. So now going into the evening after Tisha B'Av. So we said that the custom is to bless the moon after Tisha B'Av. If you notice, we haven't blessed the new moon, so we want to go ahead and bless the new moon after Tisha B'Av. If possible, you want to eat something beforehand. That way you're not starving and you just like try flying through the blessing of the moon. Meat and wine are it's still prohibited, or kind of we have the custom to refrain from eating meat and wine until the end of the 10th of Av. So that's the custom. We try not to because again the problem is that the building was burning until kind of sunset on the 10th, so we don't eat meat and drink wine. But with regards to bathing, cutting one's hair, laundry, all of these are permitted for Sephardis immediately after Tisha B'Av. So all of that would be allowed. But the Ashkenazim, they have the custom of refraining from these activities until midday on the 10th of Av. So that would be Monday at 1:33. One can get haircuts, do laundry, and so that would be
Just to clarify, the meat thing isn't midday. That's the entire day?
That's the entire 10th day, correct?
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then of course we talked about havdalah. Similar with the music. Music also. The Ashkenazim have the minhag to wait until midday on the day after, right? So on the 10th of Av of midday, so Monday at 1:33. But as far as Sephardis, that night it's permissible. The Sefer Moed L'Kol Chai, I think of the Chidah, says that a number of the disciples of the Arizal were cited as saying that according to the Kabbalah, one should never cut his hair at night, and so if you're going to go try to shave or get your hair cut that night, you probably should stray away from doing that. Nonetheless, according to the strict halacha, there's no issue of doing that. And so that's about it with regards to the halakhot of. There's a lot, kind of, but nonetheless, we have to follow all of these. Again, a lot of these are customs. A lot of these are halakhot. They're kind of hard, but the Prophet promises us that anyone, and the Gemara promises anyone who takes extra cautions, extra measures to mourn over the destruction of the temple, he will see more enjoyment, more pleasure, more joy in the building of the eventual third Beit HaMikdash. So don't think that all of this is for naught. It's going to actually not only be something that you do to get you closer to the Beit HaMikdash, but it's also something that you're going to, in fact, enjoy from when the third Beit HaMikdash is going to be built. And that's what the pasuk, the prophet says, that these days are going to turn into days of happiness and joy. And they say even that the Mashiach, his birth, whatever that means, is going to be on Tisha B'Av. And so we see that this day is always a day of hope. It's a day of, even though it's a day of sadness, we should always have in the back of our minds that this day is going to be turned into a day of happiness. And B'ezrat Hashem, we won't have to fast this Sunday. B'ezrat Hashem, the Beit HaMikdash will be built. And but if not, those are the halakhot, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll all merit to dance in the building of the Beit HaMikdash. Thank you.